I mean, unfortunately, we are clearly putting ourselves in the US bloc, and he's giving us permission.
We still have many more years of this gentleman Trump left. This is not the last of the statements that he has made. How do you deal with a situation like this?
And we have to very sternly respond to all of this and take a stand.
Hello and welcome. You're watching me, Sanket Upadhyay. This is The Federal. The show is called AI with Sanket. This is the AI of news, because news in India today requires not artificial but analytical intelligence. 3 clear provocations from the United States of America against India. Number 1, right in our strategic waters, you had a US submarine which attacked an Iranian frigate in stealth, torpedoed, many people killed. This happened in India's neighborhood, in India's area of influence. Number 2, the United States, in an information and in a communication last night, said, we give permission to India to buy Russian oil, but temporarily, only for a month. And then they will continue to buy with us. Permission. Seriously. The United States is giving India permission to buy Russian oil for a month. And number 3, if this was not enough, adding insult to injury, is the US Deputy Secretary of State, Christopher Lando, who's right here in India for the Raisina dialogue. And he gives out a statement where he says that we will not make the same mistakes that we did with China vis-a-vis a trade deal. Otherwise, you will have the same capability as us, and you will start doing, to quote him, commercial things. So is it wrong or is it a crime for a country to aspire to be an economic superpower? Or is this clearly an imperialistic colonial mindset of the United States that they can get away with anything, and now even shed the pretense of being neutral and respecting others? We put this to a quick discussion. All right, joining us right now are former Ambassador Manjeev Puri and economist Professor Santosh Mehrotra. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for speaking on this issue. Ambassador Puri, I want to begin with you first. This tendency of the United States to be the big bully is not new. We are aware. The only problem this time around is that all this conversation has started happening out in the open, where you see on documents facts written where countries are being given permission to go buy oil. Ambassador Puri, I want to know your view as a diplomat. I'm sure you must have dealt with situations like these behind closed doors. How does one deal with this publicly?
Sanket, thank you very much. Of course, this is the question that everyone asks. Look, let's go back a little bit. The United States is a hegemonic power. I think we should understand that. And hegemonic powers, their understanding of allies is those who do their bidding. Let's be quite clear about it. They don't look at partners in a sense of equal partners, etc. Something that we are trying to convince ourselves that that is what we are becoming of the United States. There's an issue of this lean. This is a matter, for people like me. I'm told I've lived in the village too long and that I hanker for strategic autonomy and stuff like that, and I have no answers to that. But the fact is that once you decide that that's your route, that's the way they will act. Now, coming to all this, you have President Trump, who's got his old ideas. Oil is very important for him. It's a simple understanding of the way power structures in the world are. He's got other ideas about legacy, very important for him. He wants to be remembered as one of the most consequential US presidents and do what nobody else could do, and so on and so forth. When you take all of this, and in the day and age that we are living in, we are also not very familiar with the United States and the way they work. Sanket, we in India have become a WhatsApp society. They don't. They use text. They use emails. That's very common. The written word is a very important element in the way things are done in the Anglophony world in particular, but the United States, Great Britain, and so on. So for us, this closeness means that you are exposed to all of that. So you have a telephone call, you think you'll put out what you like about it. They put down everything that they want, including things that they perhaps don't like, but a lot that you said yes, and you are hoping that time will come that things will go on. That's exactly what has been happening. It's the way the system works. And right now, in the context of the Iran thing, let me also leave with you this particular fact. They also are battling at their own end domestically. After all, they may have won Senate not having agreed to curb war powers, but the fact of the matter is there is a sizable political opposition to what is happening. And so, therefore, having said that Russia, and let's also go back to this. Russia is a bipartisan thing that in the United States, other than Mr. Trump, everybody thinks it's a huge problem and a big issue for the world. And so, therefore, when you've been saying we won't let anything happen with Russia, they have to put it down and they have to do this particular appeal. I'm afraid what is happening is not something that should have been unexpected. That's the way this particular cookie is getting baked out.
Professor Mehrotra, your views, I mean, I do know what you're going to say, but still, I want to understand, and if you could present your views in front of us on what you think the manner in which America is going on right now. Ambassador Puri says that they don't look for allies in terms of equals. And just to add to what he's saying, Professor Mehrotra, you'd be surprised to know that in Delhi today, the Deputy Secretary of State, Christopher Lando, at the Raisina Dialogues, has said it in as many words. He says that we will not make the same mistake that we did with China. Then the next thing we know, you are beating us in many commercial things. Many commercial things. Look at the language. This is Deputy Secretary of State. So it's very clear what America wants.
No, Sanket, it's very clear what America wants, but so should we be clear. The trouble is that we are not very clear. Unfortunately, that has been demonstrated in our signing an interim agreement, despite the fact that we knew very well how the arguments were proceeding in the Supreme Court, and the judgment came literally two weeks later. So we could have held out, and I have been arguing for months now that given the bullying nature of this administration, hegemon or no hegemon, the point is that we've dealt with hegemons in the past, but this administration is bullying, and clearly, if as we say we are attempting to appear multipolar, and we are one of the nodes of that multipolar world, then we should really have a very clear-cut. We should have had a clear-cut position on the trade deal, that we postpone it. Now we've got two sticks to beat the US with. What? One is the Supreme Court judgment, and well, it's not a stick to beat them with. It's just it should be an attempt to postpone it even further. We shouldn't be signing a deal because what the interim agreement shows that it's a one-sided deal. It's a one-sided deal because of the $500 billion commitment, the Russian oil commitment, the zero tariff commitment to them, while we are paying 18%. All of this makes it very clear that it's a one-sided deal. So we should string this out. The second reason why we should string it out is something that I've been arguing for months, that 4 months from now, we are going to get into electoral season in the House of Representatives and Senate. We should use that to ensure that the president's position becomes weaker still, above and beyond. Final point. Let's just remember that because I'll come to the statements that you've just been reading out and about oil in a second. The reason why I fear the worst is that the trouble is that we've already reduced dramatically the amount of oil we were importing from Russia. For instance, we were importing till about 4 months ago 1.8 million metric tons. We are now importing only 0.8 metric tons, million metric tons. Now that's showing that we were giving in clearly to the pressure. Now, some of that could have been on account of Nayara, the Russian refinery, the private refinery, and second was, of course, Reliance one. But there was no particular reason for the public sector refineries to be actually stopping to import. Now, let me come back to the third reason. The point here is that we are seeing that we are seeing that there is a potential for bringing this out, because clearly, if we know perfectly well that the US can go back on any commitment. We've seen this. Negotiations were going on with Iran and they attacked in June. Negotiations were going on with Iran, they attacked just now again. This time they are trying, the president's office has actually reached out to the Iran. Do you want to negotiate? The Iranians said, take a walk. We should be saying, take a walk, because clearly we're in the driving seat at this juncture. We should be in the driving seat. And honestly, the clear evidence so far has been whoever stands up to Trump wins. He chickens out. Trump always chickens out.
Okay, Dr. Bhatia is also with us. Dr. Akriti Bhatia, you see, you have a situation where a country is dictating. It is telling you, almost as if a permission is being given. Okay, this one time we are allowing you to go buy oil from Russia, but then you have to come back. So when there will be no response, see, one way of looking at it, and Ambassador Puri is smiling. See, one way of spinning this around is that, look, in a tumultuous time like this, it is that on an international platform and very openly, a country is treating you as a second-class citizen or second-class country. What do you have to say?
Absolutely, Sanketji, and this is not for the first time. What we need to understand is that there's a clear pattern, especially in the Trump 2 administration, where this blatant bullying is quite outright, and it's not just related to the this issue of economics and energy security. But I'm very sorry to say, but this has reflected in the border security of India as well. And I see India's national security as not just the border security, but also issues like energy security and economic security. These are all sovereign decisions of our country. And we have had a history of independent decision making, and of course the non-alignment position that we've had. And I'm saying about the border security is that, remember about the Operation Sindoor, where Trump came in and took credit for stopping the war and then putting all kinds of pressures. So there's a clear-cut subservient politics that we see in current, the Vishwaguru politics of India, that Modi ji is playing subservience to take place. And that's the problematic point here, as if something is at stake. I don't want to give in conspiracy theories here, but I don't know why we have to fear so much. And once we start bending, we have to bend on all fronts. So I think it's very important to put a clear foot ahead. And coming back to the energy security issue, we were at a much better off situation when we were also importing oil from Iran, and then we had to stop it in 2019 again because of US sanctions and the threat politics that it does. And now it is asking us for cutting off ties with Russia when it comes to imports. And also we know what kind of pressures it is building upon having any relations regarding defense exchanges and equipments to be bought there. So it's not just economic and energy is what I'm trying to say. It's also about defense, border security, and other very critical issues that national security entails, and in the
Right.
whole Indian Ocean and Indian subcontinent, I think we are at a very we'll become more vulnerable, because what we had are our relations with the Palestine, with the Iran, everything we are seeing how it has been shifting towards the Israel and the US very, very openly, and this was not the case before. So we have to
Yeah,
look
I
at
mean, I get the
larger.
larger point that you're making, but you see, Ambassador Puri, just restricting ourselves to this dealing with the US business. I understand that diplomacy involves a certain amount of give and take. You say, why don't we do this and we do that? And then there is this issue of national pride for any country. I would like to draw your attention to 2013, if I'm not mistaken, the Devyani Khobragade issue, where we saw that within this country, India stood up to the United States for the ill treatment of our diplomat. And raton raat, you had the boulders and all the barricades removed from outside the American embassy. It was a statement. It didn't make much of a difference to America, but it was still a statement. Do you think that statement is missing?
Sanket, look, I'm batting as an individual, and as I mentioned to you, I'm part of those with the similar thinking and your other colleagues. People say I've lived in the village too long. Look, these are decisions that governments take. What is the main reason for this, let me say, lean in the direction of the United States? One simple thing is India is going to become the fourth largest economy, third largest, a very big, large economy. For us to truly grow, build our capacities, you can't do it without technology and money, and the US is the provider. Look at all these announcements during the AI summit, Amazon, Google, OpenAI, all of them. That's the nature of what people are saying. Secondly, is this China bug. Look, there is a feeling in lots of circles in India for a long time that in the stand up to China, you can't do it unless you have on the US on your side. Now, I'm not getting into Mr. Trump not speaking on one side regarding Russia and our buying Russian oil, but being willing to do a deal with them. Also, perhaps being open to do the deal with China. Let me leave that out. But the conventional thinking in India is the United States is an indispensable ally, and we should go for it. Let's not stand on ego. Let's not stand on this thing called pride. We will see. We'll take things what happens. They cite the example of China, which you read out from the Deputy Secretary of State statement. Most of us say, look, we have Japan and Europe on the other hand. You know what hegemonic powers and ally situations with them is. So that's the nature of the game. These are decisions. You mentioned a case where I was personally there and involved. I know what you're talking about. We gave some signals, but it was a tough call for the government. Let me assure you of that. And not a tough call because the US was leaning in various ways, but because within the government, there were many people who thought that this signaling should not have been done. That's the nature. Most of these decisions are at our own level, our own thinking, etc. So I fully understand, and in a sense, I'm with all those who look at strategic autonomy, who say that look, India, largest country in the world, etc. We have to learn to stand on our own two feet, no matter how much time it takes. But I also understand where others who argue, and there are many who argue very forcefully that no, look, you need to do this particular partnerships. This is what you need. You need it for your national security, and you need it for, of course, above all, economic growth. And that's where power really flows. You have the money, you can do a lot more, especially as a large country. So let's, these are decisions. That's the way it goes.
Interesting. Professor Santosh Mehrotra, do you feel that it's a typical tough balancing act for a country when you're actually dealing with someone who, you're dealing with Donald Trump? Why am I scrambling for words? I mean, you're dealing with a Trump. What do? Either you get down to his level or that same level of stupidity in commentary.
You want us to be balanced. Well, how balanced have we shown ourselves to be so far? I mean, unfortunately, we are clearly putting ourselves in the US bloc, and he's giving us permission. Give me a break. I mean, what was the Prime Minister's visit to Israel one day before they launch a strike on what used to be our friend, Iran? What is the meaning of that? We have shown ourselves clearly right in the middle of the Israel Trump axis. And what does this mean for our position as chair of the BRICS? Give me a break, Sanket. This is where balance comes in. We are going to be chairing the BRICS this year. So we have to make sure that when we host the Quad, who knows whether Trump will turn up even for that? We've seen what his attitude has been. We've bent over backwards to bring Trump to India so that the Quad meeting takes place. But we've shot ourselves in the foot with the BRICS. There is just no question about it. No question about it. Let me assure you, whenever I meet Chinese colleagues or Russian colleagues, and I travel to Russia quite frequently, I'm visiting professor at the Higher School of Economics in Moscow, and I get a sense very clearly that India, in respect of the BRICS, is sitting on the fence. Come on. You cannot be sitting on the fence if you're going to become the third largest economy and the fourth largest economy and say that you are the fastest growing large economy in the world. Bottom line, which demonstrates balance. Sanket, we should be balanced, and that's the only way that the claim that we have, that we live in a multipolar world, and we live in a multipolar world. The fact of the matter is, it's the Europeans who don't want to recognize it. It's the US who want to be hegemonic.
Just want to ask you, should there be a response, at least, to this permission which has been given to the Deputy Secretary of State coming and saying that, we won't make the same mistake as we did with China. Otherwise, you will do commercial things like us. Commercial things. This is the Deputy Secretary of State. Maybe he needs a Renan Martin more than anything else. Yes, Dr. Bhatia.
Yes, it shows the same naivety. I mean, the Trump administration will definitely have folks of his own likes. So yes, I mean, yes, they are threatened with the kind of. It also talks about limitless potentials, right? The same quote that you were reading out, and this limitless potential is definitely only applicable to the U.S. economy. And if there's any kind of progress, so to say, because what we see clearly is that importing oil from Venezuela, US, as they're pushing towards, is going to increase further the inflation, is going to strengthen the dollar further and weaken our rupee further, and there will be also fall in exports. There'll be all kinds of economic repercussions as well, which is what they want. And that was exactly the unfair tariff deal that was also pointing towards, which was really not equivocal in any way, and it had a huge bearing on the agricultural sector of India. And it's not something new. We know from the WTO times that there's an unfair and unilateral kind of a favoritism that we see in the whole geopolitical space. Also, Europe, Professor Mehrotra was talking about this. Even the Europe and the AI policy of how the France warfare ministry is actually wanting to own all kinds of AI. So these repercussions are going to be reflecting in India as well, and we have to very sternly respond to all of this and take a stand. We can't be spineless at this time if we really want to position ourselves as any kind of Vishwaguru in the making or one of the largest economies and so on. So I completely agree with the
Okay. Ambassador Puri, towards the end, you see, it's one thing, and I just love the fact that you've smiled through this entire broadcast. So, Ambassador Puri, I understand that diplomacy is the art of negotiating an extremely and balancing an extremely delicate situation. I get it. And we've seen that our diplomats do it, countries do it. Sometimes you appear to be the loser, but it's like a haar ke jeetna, bazigar movement. I understand all of that. Having said that, we still have many more years of this gentleman Trump left. This is not the last of the statements that he has made. How do you deal with a situation like this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Let's be a little clear. This is not about diplomacy and the process. This is about foreign policy and decisions. And these decisions are not taken at the level of however senior a diplomat is, but taken at the very highest level of government. And I think we should be very clear that for years now, the situation in the country has been that the not just the preference, but the direction has been lean in that side. Now, they also understand that Mr. Trump is a huge kind of aberration to what was happening. After all, they wouldn't have expected any of this during a Democrat administration. But the fact of the lean is a different kind of level of decision. And the feeling that, that's not something you should let go, no matter the aberrations that the other go. In a sense, a kind of European approach. This too shall pass. In the meantime, let's duck. Now, these are decisions that governments take, people take. We sitting here may not be in agreement with it, but that's the viewpoint, and so therefore there will be some kind of response to the Deputy Secretary of State, but it'll be a nice response. It will say, no, we are partners, and we look forward, and so on and so forth. And why not? The answer given is, look, we are going to be the next China, and so if they could do it, so could we. The other people like us say, hey, you're a democracy, likely, and you speak English and you love that idea, likely that you would be Europe and Japan. So these are decisions. That's it. I fully understand where Professor Mehrotra comes from where Dr. Bhatia comes from, etc. I'm of their persuasion. But that's the nature of decision making. There is, at the end of the day, political decision making to it. And there, I think we should be adults enough to accept that the government's view is that a lean in their direction is favorable for India in the short and in the long run.
All right. Thank you very much to the three of you for joining us on this broadcast. So, at least Ambassador Puri agrees that there should be a statement, however polite or however balanced, maybe not lal aankh, but at the same time, yes, there should be a statement. Where at the end of the day, see, it's national pride. It looks extremely cheap for a representative of another country to say, I give you permission. Arey, who are you to give permission? That is the point.
And partnership is not permission.
Exactly.
That you provided a segue, what can one say? But anyway, let's go ahead.